everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Today, I have one of my very favorite plant-based chefs on. His name is Colin McCullough. He wrote a wonderful book that he gave me on the holistic holiday at sea vegan cruise that I actually made some recipes from on my YouTube channel. It's called The Healthy Vegan Cookbook, and he has another one, Girl Scout cookies that taste like smoothies. I mean, the other way around, smoothies that taste like Girl Scout cookies. And he's just a delight. And he's here to make some really healthy holiday recipes so that it doesn't have to undermine your healthy eating during the holidays. Please welcome back Chef Colin McCullough. How you doing?
Hi, good. Yeah, thanks so much for having me back on again.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see these recipes. They all sound delicious.
Thank you. Yeah. So, you're a huge inspiration for these recipes in the first place. Going on the holistic holiday at sea cruise really kind of helped to kickstart me moving into a healthier direction as a vegan. I've been vegan for 26 years, but I really kind of cut out a lot of the oil and the processed stuff and really did a lot more natural cooking since then, since I went on the first time. So thank you.
Yeah, and your kids are vegan too. They were on the show. They had their own episode.
Yes, they're both, they're 19 and 22 now. And actually, my older son is going to be graduating college and moving out to LA. So close to your area.
Well, and actually, I haven't been away from LA for 3 years. I live near Palm Springs. What's he going to do in LA?
Oh, he's a musician. So that's where the music is. And it's a lot warmer than New York City. So
heck yeah. Well, good luck to him. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah. So the class that we're going to do today, these are healthy recipes for different desserts. And it's great to be able to do this around the holidays because I actually make these and hand them out as holiday gifts. So there's going to be a couple of recipes that we'll go over that are great gift giving recipes. I put them in little gift boxes and love to be able to hand them out to family and friends. My mom is so hard to shop for, but she loves these. So, and then they're going to be a couple of recipes that are more for parties, if we can ever go to parties ever again and be social. So these are going to be a couple of things that I promise you bring these to a party and people are going to say, who brought those? Those are so good. So, so the first recipe we're going to do today is going to be apple spice bites. And are you going to be able to put these in the notes?
Yeah, thank you. I'm limited to 5,000 characters, so I'll put as many of the recipes as will fit. So I will be adding that as you speak.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. So the first one we're going to do apple spice bites. This is, some people say like, date balls, like, they're kind of boring. They don't have to be boring. You can add different spices to it and make them taste like all kinds of different things. So in the season of apple spice and pumpkin spice and everything, this is a great holiday one. So we'll get started. This recipe, I'm going to use a Cuisinart food processor. You see that here. I always recommend people, if you're going to buy a food processor, try to get one that's a high capacity, large capacity. This is a 14 cup. You can get the little tiny food processors at the flea market or something, but you're going to have to make the recipe in 5 batches trying to fit it all. So it's much easier just to do it all in one shot, I say. So to this one, I'm going to add 1 cup of quick oats here. So you can use regular rolled oats if you wanted to, but I like the quick oats and things like this because the larger rolled oats kind of give it a different texture, kind of make it chewier. So I kind of want the pieces to be smaller. Mix in. I have 1 cup of dried apples. So you can use just fresh apples with this if you want. It's just they're not going to last very long, so you don't want to give them as gifts. And it's going to obviously have a lot more liquid to it. So you might have to add some more oats to kind of soak up the liquid that you put in there. So there's the 1 cup of dried apples I put in. All right, and then the next is going to be a 1/2 cup of unsweetened applesauce. So I don't really use applesauce for very much. I don't eat it. I would just rather eat apples rather than applesauce. But sometimes for baking and things, it calls for applesauce. I don't like to get the big jar and then put it in the refrigerator and then it's just going to go to waste. I always buy the little cups, the little individual. These are perfect portion size. These are half a cup. So I get the unsweetened organic applesauce, and that's perfect size for this. And I'm just going to put that in. And of course, like I said, you can just use fresh apples and, really crush them up really well if you wanted to. This is just kind of adding some liquid to it, and of course the flavor. I'm also going to put in a half a cup of pecans. So I always get unroasted, unsalted, raw, if whenever possible. I like to try to keep it as unprocessed as possible. Actually, all 4 of the recipes that we're going to do today have pecans. I promise that these are like the only 4 recipes in my cookbook that have pecans in them. You're going to say like, oh my God, he puts them in everything. No, it's just.
Well, it's a nutty time of year.
It is. Oh boy. Yeah. All right. So Chef AJ fans will know Medjool Dates. We use these for a natural whole food form of sweetener. So I'm going to put these in, make sure that they're pitted, of course, because the food processors are just going to turn the pits into baby pits, and it will break your teeth. So don't want to do that. All right, and then I've also added all of the spices together here. Just kind of go over that real quick. There's a teaspoon of cinnamon, a quarter of a teaspoon of nutmeg, a quarter of a teaspoon of orange zest right here. And for that, I like to use the microfine planer here. So instead of that little handheld zester thing, I don't like to use that. The microfine planer is great. The only thing is with these, if you ever use one, is they are very aggressive. They're very sharp. So just make sure that you zest the orange and not yourself. You are not part of this recipe. All right. So
can I use that when I have calluses on my feet instead of paying for pedicure?
It'll go right through the calluses pretty quickly, I bet. All right. And then there's also 1/8 of a teaspoon of cloves. A little bit goes a long way there. 1/8 of a teaspoon of allspice. And then I like to put in a half a teaspoon of salt. You don't need to add that if you don't do salt, but I'm just putting it in here just to kind of give the flavors a little bit of an extra boost, like an amplifier. So I'll just put all that in here. And I'm going to run this for a minute. I typically will run it several times and just kind of scrape down the sides. So I'll do that here. And I suppose, like if do you have a chat window or something?
Yeah, it's okay. I can talk to people if you like.
Okay. I was also just going to say, if you have any questions or comments, anybody watching, you can just put them in the chat at this point. That's always the time when I'm going to make all the noise. So
yeah, I think Zoom will mute you anyway. We had a little bit of a late start today, guys, because it wasn't showing on YouTube, which is very scary. It's not showing on Facebook, which is why we appreciate you watching on YouTube. That's where all the fun and all the action is. And that's where these show notes are going to be. I'm currently putting them in the chat, not in the chat, excuse me, that'd be too long for the chat, in the show notes. Show notes are what appears below the video window. So thanks so much for watching on YouTube, because that's where I like to be so much. And these are his books. If you came in late, Smoothies That Taste Like Girl Scout Cookies and Healthy Vegan. And I'll put links to that as well if you want to check out these books. Let me know when you're back, Colin.
Okay, this will work for now. I normally might let it run a couple of more times just to make sure everything's chopped up really well. The main thing here is you want to get the dates to really be processed in. You don't want to take a bite of this and get chunks of dates in it, but you really just want the pieces of apple. Of course, that's going to be what you taste the most, plus the spices here. So I'm just going to empty this into a bowl. I'll show you this. Usually I will roll these into like 1-inch balls. Here we go. So you can see it's nice and sticky here, like batter. Right? So I just kind of roll, like take a small handful and roll it into, like I said, about 1 inch or like a golf ball size, like that. All right. So this will make, depending on how many you roll up, these will make, 12 to 16 or so. These do freeze really well. I actually prefer to have these frozen because you pull them out of the freezer and they're nice and firm. Um, anytime my kids are over, they come through the door, like the first question they always ask is,
What do
what
you
do you
got to
have for
eat?
food? So, I always try to have, like dessert balls like this to keep on hand, so that, when they come through the door, they want something instant, then I can, pull something out that's healthy. Um, you know, uh, People will look at these recipes sometimes to me and say, well, you got all the dates and you got nuts and there's a lot of calories in that. And so, I always say that the dessert recipes that I like to do, that I write them to be very rich on purpose. So you'll have a couple of these and they taste fantastic. And then that's it. They're so rich. You're not gonna like sit down and eat a whole plate of them. You can't. It's so it's very filling. It's got all the fiber. It's very natural. So I mean, my kids would love to eat like a whole box of Oreos if they could, but something like this, they'll have a couple and they'll be really happy with those. I also made the chocolate orange energy bites, the chocolate orange balls with them on the show last year. So that the chocolate orange bites are in that if you want to look that up. So I'll put that aside and go ahead and get started on the next recipe.
You also made
I made,
gingerbread cookie bites once on the show too that were fabulous.
oh yes, yeah, yeah. So I actually taught a live class at a library a couple weeks ago. And I mean, just like my kids, as soon as I put the food out for samples, they were demolished. People ate them all right away and I didn't have anything left. So I like doing these classes at home because then I get to eat everything myself. My wife and I, we get to eat everything. And the boys, if they're around, of course. So the next recipe we're going to do is the chocolate mousse cups. So this is one of those, like I said, you bring this to a party, everybody says, who made that? That is so good. Don't tell them there's a lot of tofu in there, unless you have that relative who says, I hate tofu, tofu's awful. And then you feed them one of these and they love it. And then you say, oh, well, there's some tofu in there. So chocolate mousse cups, you can make these in different forms. So I like to make them in, this is a mini cheesecake pan here. And you can see underneath, it's got the little metal discs in it that pop out. So this is kind of a fun way to make these. You can also make it as a pie if you want. I like to do it like this because these are also really rich. It's got plenty of chocolate in it. It's very strong. I think my head would explode if I had more than like 2 of these. So, if you have these if you make these as a pie, slice it very small for people because it's very, very rich. So I already made the crust ahead of time. This is a really great crust to use for different pies if you wanted to. The chocolate crust for this. So we'll kind of run that down. Like I said, I've already made that. I was just kind of trying to speed the process up a little bit here. You guys don't need to watch me make all that. There's 3/4 of a cup of pecans, of course, pecans. I also have 1 cup of dates. One of the reasons that I use the pecans for like this recipe and some of the date balls is they're kind of a soft nut. So if you were to use almonds, then they're much harder. And when they break down in the food processor, they're just going to be hard, crunchy pieces. And it's not really the texture that I'm looking for. So again, 3/4 of a cup of dates or pecans, 1 cup of dates, which is usually about 8 Medjool dates. And I grab this here. This is how I usually get them at my supermarket, the Medjool dates. It's either going to be these or there's the smaller Deglet Noir dates, but those are typically firmer and they don't really process as well, I find. I really like to use the Medjool dates because they're larger and they're softer and chewier, right? So it used to be sort of like a health food or ethnic store kind of thing to look for those, but now most supermarkets that I've been to have Medjool dates, so it's great. I also put in a pinch of salt. For the salt, let's see, oh, grab this. Just like on the cruise, they always like to talk about the Redmond real salt. This is what I prefer to use if you wanted to use salt. I believe this has the highest nutrient content of any salt on the market. So if you're going to use it, why not get some kind of a benefit out of it? All right. And then I also put in a teaspoon of pure vanilla powder. In this case, the crust, I don't want it to be really liquidy, so I don't use liquid vanilla for this. I like to use the powder to make sure it stays as dry as possible. And then there's the 3 tablespoons of cacao powder. I'm sure you watch this show, everybody probably already knows this, but when people say that chocolate is good for you, it's true to an extent. So the cacao, the raw chocolate, the raw cacao part of the chocolate has a lot of antioxidants. That's very good for you. But then, of course, they throw in a bunch of fat and, sugar and everything and then make chocolate. Maybe it's not as healthy, but the cacao powder is very good for you. So I put that in the food processor, blended that all really well. I wanted to make sure everything's really broken down well. So I really let that run for several minutes. You know that it's done when you open the top and it's steaming because of all the friction, it really creates the heat. All right, so I made that already, like I said, and I packed it down into the bottom of the cups here. So that's going to be the base of that. And let's see, I just gotta check this to make sure that this is ready. Cook in my own kitchen here. I'm used to bringing my own kitchen to libraries, but this is my kitchen. It's where
I love it too, the virtual, because you're right. It's so much harder to make samples for people when you do the virtual ones. You get to eat all the food yourself.
It's true. All right, but let me just move this over here so I can use the blender. So now I'm going to make the mousse part of the recipe. This works well for me if I use the blender. I like to use the Vitamix. It's always like weird in a class if I don't use my Vitamix for something. I use it all the time. But if you have a NutriBullet or a Ninja or something like that, that'll work fine too. You can use the food processor if you wanted to, but if you want it to really come out super smooth and creamy and whipped, then this is the way to do it. All right, so this is, of course, the secret ingredient is morinu. This is the silken tofu. This is what I prefer to use. If you don't have morinu silken tofu in your supermarket, definitely check in the Asian section, like the Asian foods. This is usually on the shelf, so it doesn't have to be refrigerated. It's shelf stable, it lasts for a really long time. You can just use silken tofu if that's all you have. Silken tofu isn't going to last very long. It expires, after a couple of weeks. But this stuff, it lasts a really long time. It's kind of cool, actually. When they make this, they put all the ingredients in the box, and it is made in the box itself. So shelf stable. I always keep a bunch of these around. If this doesn't really have much of a flavor to it, it kind of has like a custard kind of consistency to it. All right. And then let's see, I have, hopefully, for this recipe, I actually use 2 bars of high quality chocolate. So I think this may be the only recipe in the cookbook that actually uses real chocolate. Most of the time I'm using the cacao, but in this, I want it to be super, super rich. I don't use chocolate chips for anything in my cooking. Anytime that I do like to use chocolate chips, I just chop up high quality chocolate bars. It makes such a big difference. If you can even find vegan chocolate chips, they're usually like 45% cacao, not really high quality chocolate, not very good tasting, versus really deep, like 90%. I'm talking 90% cacao chocolate, like the really rich stuff. So I've melted that. Melting chocolate, of course, always a little difficult. It's like avocados, right? Not quite ready, not quite ready. Perfect. Okay, too much. So when you heat up the chocolate, don't heat it too much because it's going to seize, and then there is no rescuing it at that point. As far as I know, can you rescue seized chocolate, AJ?
I don't think so. I think once it's scorched, I don't think you can save it.
There's nothing worse than wasting chocolate. It's awful. All right, So there's the chocolate. So remember, anytime if you do decide to use chocolate chips, use chocolate bars instead. It's so much better, tastes so much better. All right, and then to this, I'm going to add, I will add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup or agave, just because the chocolate is really not very sweet. 90% chocolate is pretty bitter. So if you wanted to add some sweetener to it, you could. You could also do 2 tablespoons of date syrup if you wanted to just stick with the dates. This is one of the few recipes in the book where I actually use something other than dates for sweetener, but I'll put in about 2 tablespoons there. I try to stay away from the other sweeteners because they're so highly processed, including agave, but in this recipe, it seems to work better for me. And then the last thing is going to be espresso powder. This is just ground up espresso beans. I put in about 1/4 teaspoon in this recipe. You know, I probably stole this from you, AJ. Espresso powder, using it in desserts. It's sort of like the baker's secret. You know, if you put in 1/4 teaspoon, it doesn't really, you can't taste it. It just kind of makes the chocolate a little bit richer. So like I said, this is so rich at the end that my head would explode if I had 2 of these. So I'm gonna go ahead and blend this up just for a minute here. It really doesn't take much. I'm just gonna stir it around a little bit here. And like I said, you put it in the blender and it really kind of whips it up so that it's really light. You want to kind of get that mousse kind of consistency to it. All right. So I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to show you here. You take a large spoon, like a soup spoon, and going to take it out of here. So already you can see it's kind of pudding, kind of thick consistency. When you refrigerate this, which is the next step, you cool it off, it is going to get thicker. It's not going to be solid, but it'll definitely be thicker. And that will give you just the perfect kind of mousse consistency to it. So I suppose you could get really fancy and, you know, really smooth it out so it's nice and smooth across the top. I'm too busy eating these to get too fancy with them. So there's that. So like I said, I won't do all this right now. I'll do it later. And I'll enjoy these for many days to come. That was wonderful. And if anybody have any questions or comments.
I've been so busy putting the recipes in the show notes, so hopefully everybody can see those now. I'm hoping. Maybe let me know. They're there on YouTube. And so let me go check the chat now. You know, at Trader Joe's, you can even buy the chips now 100% cacao, no sugar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, they're not sweet,
okay.
You know, so you probably want to use maybe some date syrup or something, but you can get them now. They're more widely available.
Yeah, I have never been able to find in any supermarket, Whole Foods or anything near me, date syrup. It's been sort of elusive. I've ordered it online, so I definitely have some, but it seems to be in my area anyway. It's a little tricky to find it. So,
where do you live? What is not your exact address, but what's your area?
I'm in Maine, central Maine. So there is a Whole Foods in Portland, and I've looked several times, but I've never been able to find it. I just ordered it on Amazon. You know, it comes right to your door. Really couldn't be easier.
Right. Well, if you order date syrup, make sure you use the Chef AJ 10% discount.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Some Whole Foods do carry date syrup and some don't, I think.
Well, Whole Foods is about an hour from me here in central Maine. So I don't go very often. It's kind of like for specialty ingredient runs and things like that. And then I just go to my local supermarket for most things. Right. So The next recipe we're going to do is another date ball recipe. This one, this is called the Bluesberry Brother Bites. So I like to use blueberries on this. My sister and I were doing a Blues Brothers watch party. I said, oh, I got to make some like dessert themed, Blues Brothers kind of thing. So this one is kind of just for fun, but it's so good. It tastes very, very good. So we'll make this one. So we have a cup of quick oats here. So put that in and put in half a cup of pecans, of course, pecans. And then I put in the Medjool dates. So the dates, these are really great as a sweetener, but they are very sticky. So it really kind of helps to hold the date balls all together, the consistency for it. I put in a cup of blueberries. So these are frozen blueberries that I've defrosted. I will kind of drain the liquid out because otherwise it becomes a little bit too liquidy. The date balls are a little bit too wet there. One extra kind of bonus ingredient that you can add, speaking of Trader Joe's, they do have the freeze-dried blueberries. So those kind of add kind of a fun extra bit of texture to this and just kind of boost up the blueberry flavor a little bit more. So if you have a Trader Joe's near you, then you can add these if you want. I'm just going to throw some in here. Totally optional, up to you. And then I put in a zest of half of a lemon. So in this quantity, just a half of a lemon, it's not very much. So you're not going to taste it in here. It just kind of like the taste of blueberry and lemon just kind of go together so well. Just a little bit of lemon like this is just going to give it, such a great extra little flavor, but you're not going to taste the lemon in there. I'm going to put in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So this is actually extract that I've made myself. It's so much cheaper to make your own vanilla. There's lots of recipes on YouTube, lots of videos that you can find on how to make your own. You can use vodka, which this may or may not be. And here you can use, glycerin to do the same thing as well. So the thing with making your own vanilla, it takes a long time. You got to be patient. So this, I think I made like a year ago. That you have to let it sit for the vanilla beans that are in there. You have to let it sit for at least 6 months. So if patience is not your thing, just go get the vanilla at the store. But it is so good when you make your own. It's really great. So I'll put in about a teaspoon there. And then I'm going to put in, like I said, I like to put in a little bit of salt. There's a 1/4 of a teaspoon here just to kind of act as a bit of an amplifier for the taste. Totally optional. Don't need to do that if you don't want to. And then I also added 2 tablespoons of hemp seeds, hemp hearts. Seeds, just like the vegan doctors always say, seeds are like little nutritional powerhouses, right? So like, the whole germ for the plant is right in the seeds. So I like to be able to add seeds to things. When people say like, oh, you're vegan, what do you eat, like seeds and nuts all day? Yes, I do, but in the form of smoothies and, delicious desserts and things like that. So there's 2 tablespoons of hemp hearts here. You don't really taste the hemp seeds in here. It's just kind of a little extra nutrition. Sometimes, people like to add protein powder into things. I've never added anything like that. It's just, the nuts and the seeds and all that, it's got so much protein in it already. I can't imagine why you need to add more, but that's what I like to do. So I'll scrape this down and run it a couple of times. It, of course, the blueberries give it such a strong blue-purple color to it. Looks great. Scrape it down, run it again. So once it all starts to kind of clump together in the food processor, you know it's about ready. So again, you're really just trying to break it down so that you don't have pieces of the Medjool dates in there. You don't get chunks of anything. You want this to be pretty homogeneous in terms of the texture. All right, so here we go. So here's the batter that comes out. So it's kind of sticky. So
That looks so good. I love the color of it.
Yeah, really. It's so vibrant. It's great. Right. And so, like I said, about the size of a golf ball or so, right? And then I'll take some shredded coconut powder, and depending on what the texture is that you want for the coating to be. So I'll just kind of roll that for a little bit in the shreds here. All right. If you have powder, then it'll really coat it completely, but it's sticky enough on the outside. It just kind of picks up all of the shreds here. So you can see there it is. I'll get real close there.
Right. Could I do it without the nuts, Colin? I don't eat nuts. So, I mean, could I do these recipes without them? Would they taste okay?
I would think so. Yeah. Let's see. I don't know that you would need to substitute anything in there for the nuts. It's funny when I do library cooking classes all the time, then people always have questions about things that you can substitute one for the other, and that always keeps me on my toes. Those questions always sometimes make you think outside the box. So there's the Bluesberry Brother bites. Like I said, I won't make them all right now because I don't want to take up all the time with that. But again, just like the apple spice bites, these do freeze very well. Right, so I will take a whole batch of these, put those in a Ziploc bag, put them in the freezer, and then when my kids come through the door, again, there's something that that they can just grab and have that, and it's really good for you. So in my cookbook, in the Healthy Vegan Cookbook, I actually don't have a dessert chapter. My publisher said, where are the desserts? You got to have desserts, and I said, well, I call it the healthy snacks chapter, right? Because, if it's healthy, then you can have it as a snack. You can have it as a dessert. You can have these for breakfast. I mean, this is basically what you would put in a smoothie, but in bite form. So, if you're like my wife, sometimes she's on the go, she's got to grab something, go to work. She'll just take a couple of these out of the freezer and just have these for breakfast. It's very healthy. So why not? Right. I'm very happy to have dessert for breakfast. So
that'd be a great name for a book, Dessert for Breakfast.
Right. Yeah. So many of the smoothies that I make, I have 30 different smoothie recipes in the book. That's usually what I make for breakfast every day and start my day with. Most of those are designed to taste like different desserts. So I have like a carrot cake smoothie, sweet potato pie smoothie. Great way to get the sweet potato in, trying to get some in every day. People will say, it must be such a sacrifice being vegan and, eating that way. And, I'm just like sitting there drinking my chocolate cherry smoothie and say, oh yeah, sacrifice. This is really, it's tough, it's difficult, so. All right. So the last recipe that we'll do for today is the lemon tartlets with oatmeal cookie crust. This one is actually not my recipe. I just found this on the internet and kind of tried to take a little bit more of a healthy spin on it. So if you see these in the notes, you'll see it calls for coconut cream. I don't like to use coconut cream because it's a very processed version of coconut. So, coconut, of course, is one of those things that coconut itself is really healthy, but then, if you, take all the fiber out and press all the oil and you have coconut oil, which really is not very healthy, but coconut itself definitely is fairly healthy. So what I like to use, and I'll show you in here, this is coconut manna. This is the Nativa brand. So I like to use coconut manna in recipes that call for coconut milk. So when I'm doing Thai cooking and things like that, instead of using coconut milk, I'll use the coconut manna because it is a whole food version of using coconut rather than one of the more processed versions.
So it's sort of like the whole food version?
It is, yeah. So it's like, how they would make peanut butter, just putting peanuts in a food processor, just process it over and over and over again. Coconut Man is the same way. It's just coconut meat that's been put in the food processor, and it just runs and runs and runs until it's like butter. So this one, this is more of a Whole Foods kind of thing than Nativa. I really don't find this in my regular supermarket very often. So, I'll go to Whole Foods and I'll get like 3 or 4 of these jars and just keep them in my pantry, and then shelf stable, lasts a long time. So.
Question about the last recipe. I'm sorry, Lakeisha, I didn't see it. If you could substitute carob for the chocolate.
Yes, if you want it to taste horrible. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
But some people can't have chocolate. Like, there's reasons.
Right. No, I totally get it. And I'm just kidding. Sometimes I've had carob that tastes good, but people sometimes will like not tell you, and it's like, hey, what is that? Oh, it's carob. Yes, you can definitely use carob powder, carob chips. That's fine. That's a fine substitute. Yep. Right. So with this one, like I said, I kind of made a lot of this ahead of time just to kind of try and save time, and you guys don't need to watch me use the food processor yet again. So I made the crust for this. This is an oatmeal cookie crust. And in this recipe, I wanted to make it as little tartlets. So this is a little mini tart pan. And it's got like fluted edges. I know you can't really see right here, but around the pan, it's got the fluted edges. So when you take these out when they're done, then it's got a nice pattern on the sides. You can use larger tart pans. You can make this as a pie if you wanted to. I'm not really sure how well it would hold together as a pie. So I like to make these little individual size. If you're going to bring it to a party or something like that, then it makes it so everybody can have one. So for the crust, I put in 2 tablespoons of coconut manna. I put in 1/3 cup pecans, 1 cup of rolled oats, 1/2 cup of unsweetened shredded coconut. I'll put in 7 dates, 7 of the Medjool dates. 8 just makes it too sweet, so got to go with 7. The zest of 1 lemon, and also 1/8 teaspoon of sea salt. All right, so I put that in the food processor, blend all of that together, and really just run it for a while, make sure everything's really broken down well. And then I take the batter and press it into these cups here. All right, and then I'll bake that at 350 for about 10 minutes or so, and then they turn kind of a golden brown color. All right, so the chocolate cookie like crust, you don't have to cook that ahead of time. It's a no bake, no cook thing. These ones, it holds together better if you bake it. So I bake that for 10 minutes, and then I go ahead and I make the lemon curd for this. So this is kind of thickened up a bit now. I'll show you, this is the juice. You add the juice of 2 to 3 lemons in a saucepan. 2 lemons if you like people. If you want to be mean to them, add 3 lemons because it's super sour and people, oh, wow. Just warn them ahead of time if you're going to do 3 lemons, is what I'm saying to you. Also, 2/3 cup of coconut manna to that. Again, that's very rich, but again, like you're only going to have 1 of these. You're not going to be like eating all 12 of them. So, it's dessert. It's going to have some calories. So there's the 2/3 cup of coconut cream. What works so well with that is once you put these in the refrigerator, when it's all done, you're going to let them sit in the refrigerator for about an hour. The coconut cream is going to make it, the coconut manna is going to really thicken up as it cools down. And so that'll give this a really nice curd, thick consistency to it. So not quite like pudding, it's more like lemon curd if you've had that. And then I'm going to skip over the 2 tablespoons of cornstarch that it says on the recipe, because if you use coconut manna, you don't need it. It already thickens it up. I put in 1/4 cup of agave nectar to sweeten this, to offset that super tart lemon juice, I use agave specifically for this because it's clear. If you use like date syrup, it's going to really darken it up and it's going to look totally different. But you can add that if you want to. And then I put in a teaspoon or more of turmeric into here. Of course, turmeric, it's one of the super health foods. Put it in as many things as you can, even in desserts, right? So, once you whisk this together and cook it on medium heat, the heat's going to activate the turmeric and it's going to be bright yellow, as you can see here. So this, I put this on the stove right before I came on the show, right before we started. So it's, if it was nice and hot, then it would be a lot thinner and I'd actually be able to pour it. But in this case, because it's cooled off a little bit, I'm just going to use the spoon and I will put it into, like you can see, I'll put it into one of the cups here and then just kind of smooth it out. Right, so there's one. Like I said, if you want it to be fancy, then you can go ahead and smooth that out and so it looks really nice, but I'm not that fancy, I gotta be honest. So I fill all these up with the lemon curd. This recipe is enough to fill up all 12 of these.
It's such a bright yellow. It almost looks like it, you used egg yolks. It's so yellow.
It is. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And
Susanna wants to know, is the manna and coconut butter, are those the same product when you see coconut manna and when you see coconut butter?
I believe so. You definitely want to make sure that it's pure coconut when you look at the ingredients, that nothing else is added to it. I think that is the case. Yes. Right. So this is the only brand that I buy though, is the Nativa brand. Not paid by them, wish I was, but it was Nativa. That's what they usually have at Whole Foods. I have seen other brands that are interchangeably called coconut butter, but I believe it's the same thing. All right, so it's not coconut oil you don't want to use, and coconut milk in the can, anything like that. I just use coconut manna for everything because it's whole food. Right, so I fill these up, put them in the refrigerator, let them set for about an hour, and then you can very carefully, because this is a non-stick pan, you can very carefully kind of wedge these cups out, and then you can put them on a tray and bring them to the party, and you'll be everybody's favorite, unless you use 3 lemons, and then
you were worried about not getting them all done, and I said we could go over, but it's incredible how quick these recipes were. I hope your kids are coming over today, or you're going to have to eat a lot of dessert, Colin.
Oh, it's all me. It's all Sarah and me. We are gonna make the sacrifice and eat these ourselves. Maybe our neighbors, if we're feeling very generous, but we actually haven't had these in quite a while, so it'll be nice, and we can give some of them as gifts too.
Right. So Marlene says, where did you get that pan? I have a similar pan that I got on Amazon, but
yeah, same thing, Amazon. That tart pan and also the mini cheesecake pan, I just ordered online. Like I said, Amazon comes right to your door. So, that's the thing, is people say like, oh, these specialty ingredients, I can never find that. You can find it on Amazon. They got everything there. Comes right to your door.
And speaking of Amazon, both Colin's books, whoops, wrong side, Smoothies That Taste Like Girl Scout Cookies and The Hungry Vegan, both excellent books. I'll put a link. I did put a link in the chat and in the show notes. So Susanna says, could you use coconut manna and water to flavor a curry without all the fat from the can of coconut milk?
Absolutely. Yes. So when I make Thai curries from scratch, or if I use the can, the curry paste from the can, which I really don't like to use, but I always use coconut manna instead of coconut milk from the can. Always, always, always. For that, you would just add some water, and like a cup of water and a couple of tablespoons of coconut manna would be maybe, let's see, can is going to be 12 to 16 ounces. So maybe like a cup and a half or 2 cups of water, maybe a quarter of a cup of manna. and it's going to give you the same flavor, the same texture. It's going to be the same consistency. So why not just use the whole food version?
Right. And Marlene says, how do you get them out of the pan? You just kind of push up from the bottom, right?
Yep. Yeah. For the mousse cups, they're easy. They've got the hole in the bottom. You just push it right through. For the tart pan, you can kind of flex it a little bit. If you want to take like sometimes I'll use like just a little knife and be really, really careful just to kind of get it under and push it up. Make sure you don't want to scrape the non-stick coating on here. If you have, like a wooden utensil that's got a really fine edge to it, then you can just kind of, all you have to do is just pop it out. It's really not difficult. It's not going to break apart as long as you put it in the refrigerator and really let it set for about an hour.
Great. So these are, do you have any other books other than these two books? And are you active at all on social media? I went to your Instagram page. I put the link to it, but it doesn't seem like you do anything there.
Oh, I'm the laziest. I'm the laziest when it comes to social media, the worst. Most of the promotion that I do really is on my website for classes that I teach. So I don't really do a lot of online stuff except for teaching at libraries. I teach a lot of classes online virtually at different libraries. So if you go onto my website, colincooksvegan.com, COLIN, colincooksvegan.com, there is a Google Calendar there that shows all of the different classes that I'm teaching. They're all for free. So you can go on there and you just basically have to register at the library. Doesn't matter if you live in California or Australia or wherever. You can just sign up.
Free? That's incredible. I mean, we should pay you. You're so good. It's free is not enough money for you.
Well, thank you. When I went on the holistic holiday at Sea Cruise, the first time that I went, I saw you and Kim Campbell, did these great cooking demonstrations. And I thought, there must be somebody in my area that's teaching classes like this that I can learn more. And when I got back to Massachusetts, nobody's teaching classes like that. And so I said, well, I guess I'll do it because I've been vegan for a long time. And, there's a lot that I've learned along the way that I like to be able to share with people, especially with the libraries. There's a lot of people that are not vegetarian, not vegan. And for me, it's kind of like their first exposure to that. And, they get to ask me the questions of like, where do you get your protein? And, all of those kind of newbie kind of questions. It's a great environment for people to be able to ask those things. And, people ask me about, why I became vegan, and I'll talk, a little bit about, animal welfare and things like that. But, it's really a cooking class. So, it's really meant to just try and help people to learn how to cook, more healthy. And, so many people that I meet, they've never even heard of no oil. What are you talking about? No oil. So, we talk about a lot of the different tips and things that, a lot of the stuff that I learned at the holistic holiday at sea.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're terrific. I didn't even know. I mean, I hope the library's at least paying for your ingredients or something,
Yes. Yeah.
Good, because your stuff is fantastic. And you're so calm. I love your demeanor. You're like the opposite of me. I'm a little hyper. Wow. So what do you have planned for the holidays?
Well, it's times being what they are, I usually play it close to home. My wife works at a nursing home, so she's extra cautious about making sure that whatever she does, she's not going to get COVID anywhere. So we generally don't really do a lot of socializing at this point. Would love to get back to that, but
have you ever done like a demo with the home?
I'm in a new house. So, the last time that I was on the show, I think I was in my tiny little apartment. I'm like in this little corner in the kitchen, but I actually have space to do that now. Teaching some classes at the house. Maybe once we're on the other side of all this craziness.
I actually meant at the home that your wife works at, like for the residents.
Oh, geez. Well, they don't have any visitors at all. They have it. They don't have anybody come in because of COVID.
I understand. Yeah. Cool. Well, this is like, we were worried you were going to go over. You went under and we got a late start. That just shows how easy your recipes are.
Yeah, thank you.
So, but what are you cooking for? What are you cooking for Christmas dinner?
Ooh, well, believe it or not, one of my favorite things to have for Christmas and also for Thanksgiving, I just lump them in together, is a green bean casserole, which, it doesn't sound that exciting, but there's a recipe that I wrote for that that's in the Healthy Vegan Cookbook, lean and mean green bean casserole. It is so good. It's got poblano peppers in it. It's got a nice smoky flavor to it. I love making that. Sometimes I forget, I can make that the rest of the year. I usually just make it for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I say, why don't I make this more often? It's so good. So that's
his recipes are really good, guys. I'm not just saying that. I have the book and I've made his recipes, and this would be a great stocking stuffer for people,
Yes, I think it would be great.
I think so too. Well, I think you're great. I'm sorry it took so long to have you back on. You got to sometimes remind me, because people that I love the cooking demos so much because I enjoy watching them. Yeah. What did you make for Thanksgiving?
Let's see. Did the green bean casserole, the turkey, the tofurkey, of course, is like the perennial favorite. There's all these choices now, but I've been vegan for so long that, it's sort of like tofurkey is the standby. It's so good.
I'm curious what the audience is going to make first of the 4 recipes, because someone said, I'm going to make the lemon tartlets right now. And there's someone watching that sounds like she said she has already made them. And there's a question. Wow. Colin said you could substitute something from the agave and the lemon tartlets. He said the reason he used agave is because it's clear, but if you use date syrup or maple syrup, it would turn it a brown color. I wonder, is there anything else that's clear other than agave that's sweet?
I've never experimented with any of the things like monk fruit or anything like that. I wonder if maybe something like that you could just kind of sprinkle that in, and that would help. It just has to offset the super tartness of the lemon. I actually made these and brought them to my neighbor last year, and she sent them back. They're too strong. They're like nuclear lemon. She's like, I like lemon, but my God, that's
somebody needs to invent dates that are clear, or light colored dates. Somebody's saying they can see my reflection on your fridge, and so can I when I look. That's so fun. That is.
How about golden raisins? If they could make like a
raisin paste, that is a fabulous idea. Or like just you make date paste, you make raisin paste with yellow raisins, which are sweeter. I think that'd be fabulous. I'm going to try that. Yeah,
or I suppose you could use green grapes too, and just blend those in, I suppose.
Yeah. You can always try. Well, I love your new haircut. You remind me, I can't think if there's an actor, but I cannot think of it. He's a very funny actor, and I think his name is Bob. And I can't, maybe it's Bob Hoskins. Could that be? I don't know. Is it okay to substitute frozen blueberries for the fresh in the Blueberry Brothers bites? You did use frozen.
Yes. Yeah, really just for the sake of convenience, so that you can make them anytime you want. And, especially when my kids are here, I try to keep my pantry stocked and my freezer stocked as much as I can, so that, if they say, hey, Dad, I'm like the short order cook, I'm the chef. So, they like to throw something at me, say, hey, can you make this? And, snap my fingers, half an hour later, it's made, and they love it. So frozen blueberries are so much more convenient for me.
Right. Well, we love your recipes. Thanks so much, Colin, for taking the time. And guys, check out this book. It's really good for the holidays. And this is good too for a stocking stuffer, or get them as a pair for your loved ones. All right. Well, take care, Colin. Happy holidays to you.
All right. You too. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow for another fabulous cooking demo with Michelle Davis from Mastering Diabetes. We're going to send her around whole grains. Bye, Colin. Come back anytime. Take care.
All right. Thanks so much.